Hi, so now we're going to look at the last of the modulus graphs that I want to talk about. And they're going to look something like this. So we've dealt with a situation where we've got the modulus, we've got one modulus in the equation. What happens if I've got two moduli in the equation? So what happens if I have something that looks like this? Now, in the previous example, we only had one critical value that we had to consider, and that is the critical value in the modulus graph, in the modulus bracket. But now we've got two modular brackets, so we need to consider both of those. So I need to consider what's happening round about 1, because 1 is going to make that bracket 0, and what's happening at around 2, because 2 is going to make that bracket 0. So I've got three different zones. I've got this zone here, I've got the zone between 1 and 2, and then I've got the zone to the right of 2. So here I need to construct three different equations, and I need to have those three zones carefully set up. So to begin with, I'm going to look at what happens when x is less than 1. So what's going to happen with this modulus function? Well, if I go and put a value less than 1, let's make it 0. If I put 0 into that first bracket, my result is negative. So I'm going to have to multiply by a minus. And what happens if I put 0 into that bracket over there? It's also going to make it negative. So I'm going to have to multiply this bracket by minus. Now if I do all of that, I'm going to get minus x plus 2 minus x plus 1. In other words, I'm going to get the graph minus 2x plus 3. So when x is less than 1, I'm going to get this function here. Now, let's consider what happens in the next zone. The next zone lies between 1 and 2. Notice I say x is greater than or equal to 1, so to deal with that bracket over there, and less than 2. So 1.5 is a number that lies in that interval. If I go and put 1.5 into this first modulus bracket, I'm going to end up with a negative amount. So I've got to go and multiply by minus. So I'm going to get that. The second one, however, 1.5 is going to make that bracket positive. Anything bigger than 1 is going to make that bracket positive, so it can just stay as it is. So in other words, I'm going to have minus x plus 2 plus x plus 1. Now, I've got minus x plus x. The x is going to go. I've got y is equal to 3. Well, that's just a straight line. So between a horizontal line, rather, they're all straight lines. Between 1 and 2, I'm going to have a horizontal line. And let's see what happens when I deal with the area to the right of 2. So in other words, when x is greater than or equal to 2. When x is greater than or equal to 2, so in other words, a value like 3, 3 will make that bracket positive, so it stays as it is. 3 will make that bracket positive, so it stays as it is. So in other words, I can just keep these as they are. I don't have to multiply by a negative. And now when I tidy all of that up, I'm going to get 2x minus 3. And so here I've got three different graphs that I'm going to have to plot. So let's get some axes up and see what happens with this. Right, now where are my critical values? My critical values are going to be happening along a line down here and along a line down here. This is when x is equal to 1, this is when x is equal to 2. Now, at x is equal to 1, y is going to be minus 2 plus 3 is going to be 1. When we look at our next point, we're not going to look at when x is equal to 1. We're going to look at when x is equal to 2, because I want to know what's happening over here. When x is equal to 2, y is going to be 2 times 2, which is 4 minus 1, which is going to be 1. And so now I've got points that I can plot. I know that between 1 and 2, I'm going to have a straight line, a line that runs over just like that. Now, when x is less than 1, I'm going to have this graph over here, minus 2x plus 3. So gradient of 2, so it goes up 2, across 1, up 2, across 1. So I'm going to have a line that looks something like that. Now that is a black graph, so I'm going to draw it with a black line. And here we've got that graph running like that. Last one is a green line. For the interval where x is greater than 2, we've got the graph y is equal to 2x minus 3. So I'm going to go from this point up 2 across 1, up 2 across 1. And so I can now draw my graph there, and I get this line that's happening like this. And so we get quite an unusual shaped graph. It looks a bit like a bucket in cross section or something like that. But that is the modulus graph of these two functions. So I hope that helps you. The graphs that they have asked have not been this complicated in the past, but because it's a new syllabus, you may find that things are going to be a little bit more gnarly. Okay. What you need to do now is to go and practice these. Cheers.